Watching a MrBeast challenge video is a completely different experience than taking part in it yourself. And in his newest game show, where people sat in glass boxes for 200 hours, viewers got the luxury of criticizing the contestants and their poor performance, all while mumbling to themselves about how easy it would have been to win if only they were chosen to participate instead of some snot-nosed 3-year-old. Well, what if I told you that you were completely right, and that anyone with a good game sense and an eye for MrBeast shenanigans can more than triple their chances of winning? How's that possible? Well, let's take a look at Jimmy's newest game show, ages 1 through 100 fight for 500,000. Contestants aged between 1 and 100 each got put in a glass box with nothing but a dysfunctional TV and a bed. And if you know anything about MrBeast games, you know if he gave you a bed, it means the man's got plans for this to last a while. Right off the bat, you need to make a choice. Knowing you could very well wind up in the MrBeast branded dungeon for a week, do you still want to participate? Considering some of his older challenge videos, that means you'll be eating mostly fast food, get no shower, have to use a porta potty, and be trapped around strangers who could wind up being the most intolerable people on the planet. Personally, I couldn't go longer than a day because I need my phone to play Clash Royale, but maybe 500 grand could persuade you otherwise. Either way, if you're choosing to stick around, we can continue. So each box was placed in ascending order, with players of similar ages being put next to each other. Considering that most of you watching this are around 18 to 24, that'll have the bulk view somewhere around here, which is a pretty good spot, because although I'd hate to admit it, age has a huge part to play in the success of each player. And it's not just your own age you have to take into account, but also the ages of the people around you and where you're put on the map. If you're on the perimeter of the square, you'll have 5 people next to you, but if you're put in a corner, you'll only have 3. Everyone else gets 8, so knowing that this is going to be a long, drawn-out event, more people around you means more chances to stimulate your bored brain and more potential for teaming up. 2 crucial pieces to winning the game. More people doesn't always mean better though, because the first side of the square is all ages 1 through 10. They're just a bunch of screaming, whining children that won't stick it out for any longer than 2 days. So what's your strategy to win, little kid? Yeah, staining your bed with apple juice is a great plan. I'm sure you're sticking around for the long haul. So basically, being surrounded by older players gives you a better outcome for the rest of the challenge. And funnily enough, we're still talking about the first few seconds of the game show here. But it's nice to know if you're playing at a disadvantage, so you can maybe cut your losses before wasting a week in a glass box. With the challenge officially beginning, some players started preparing for the long haul, all while I prepared to bring out our sponsor, Cloudbreaker Alliance. From the YouTuber CJ from Don't Stop Thinking, Cloudbreaker is an anime-inspired tabletop role-playing system tuned with characters in mind, offering a whopping 256 levels to gain and classes to pick up and swap between, all with their strengths and weaknesses. A major aspect of Cloudbreaker's battle system comes from spirit tokens, energy that players can gain and share every turn to unleash powerful effects on the battlefield. Think the power of friendship or limit breaks in Final Fantasy. Enemies in Cloudbreaker also have unique weaknesses that can neutralize them in a single turn. Couple that with a morale system to scare off the rest, and fights go from being damage checks to the main event. As a collab between me and Cloudbreaker, the Koi Siren from my anime packs is also dropping as a playable life form, so keep a lookout. Kickstarter is launching August 1st, so sign up below and don't miss it. Thanks to Cloudbreaker Alliance for sponsoring, and let's get right back to the video. One dude mentioned that a good view of the money was a great motivator. I sort of agree. It's something else to look at besides the other suffering prisoners around you. This guy gets some stretches in, getting his body ready for whatever the first twist in the game could be. Good idea. And this brainiac mentions that his daughter's birthday is on Saturday. Although I could easily skip a birthday for a chance at $500,000, most people in MrBeast videos have historically been on the brink of quitting because they miss their families. Anyone who cares that much is just gonna suffer, because winners of challenges like these are historically people who have absolutely nothing going on in their life. Moving on, people were just starting to get comfortable by the time the children came up with one of the first strategies of the game. Even though the children were on the complete opposite side from the adults and grandparents, the power of their vocal cords reached the entire building. For who knows how long, they began screaming at the top of their lungs, traumatizing a handful of older players and getting them to quit right off the bat. Ages 21 through around 51 probably still deal with screaming children on a regular basis and might have less chronic chronic illnesses. So if you're anywhere in that bracket, then you might have the resolve to stick the first 24 hours of this torture out. Because don't think the screaming only affected the older players, because not even the kids could deal with it. They were just here to play a self-destructive game and torment everyone in the process, and I'm all here for it. So based on our data so far, if you're too young or too old, just give up now because you won't have the fortitude to see it through. Jimmy leaves for a while. I mean, I would too if the game show room was rocking an ear-piercing 130 decibels, and a bunch of people just began dropping like flies. I just need to see my kids again. What? I'll never understand people like this, but based on what we've talked about already, I guess it's inevitable.
I just remembered that I have to go back to school.
You didn't clear this with your teacher beforehand, or did you just not expect how long this challenge was gonna take? Either way, should have dropped out of the game the second you saw the beds.
This isn't for me at my age.
Yeah, it's safe to assume both halves of the square are gonna collapse by the end of day 2.
I miss my dog.
All of these excuses are giving me D&D scheduling issue vibes. But then on the opposite end, we get to hear that this person would love to win to help clear their sister's student debt. Powerful motivators like this are a great way to keep morale up and stay determined. Because if you're already living a comfortable life and don't need the cash, the chances of you winning drop significantly. It's like if you dangled a piece of meat in front of a starving lion, it's gonna hunt like its life depends on it. As opposed to a well-fed one that can't even be asked to crawl out of the shade. The IRS hunting you down? Have crazy medical bills? Living in California? Well, keep it on your mind so you don't lose hope like all the weaklings that leapt before you. Day 2 rolls in, and just like I predicted, the sides of the age square are beginning to collapse. With a new day also comes a new challenge, and Jimmy gives everyone the chance to vote on if they'd like to play a game that could potentially wipe a bunch of them out early. Green button yes, red button no. If you can, try to ask the people around you what they voted for, because anyone clicking green might already be on the verge of quitting and could just be trying to get the game over with. You can click the red button all you want though, but the majority of people are already fed up and want the game to end faster, so you're playing one way or the other. After voting, Jimmy revealed the challenge to be 3-cup Monty. A ball would be placed under one cup, and for like an hour, the crew slowly moved 3 of them around. At some point, everyone had to guess which cup had the ball, with every wrong answer being eliminated. Most of the youngest kids and their TikTok-infected attention spans were doomed for failure, and if you lost track of the cup, you were as good as gone if you didn't have a friend nearby who had your back. It's at this point that teams finally began to form to help remind each other where the ball was, which, if they didn't wind up betraying each other, would be vital for surviving the challenges that would come next. 52 people remained, and the age groups with the best fighting chance were starting to become apparent. And by the end of 3-Cup Monty, we had 3 types of players remaining. The lone wolves that mostly kept and relied on themselves, the teamers that formed trust around their age groups, and the scoundrels who lied to their neighbors about where the ball was to try and get them out early. Nobody liked the scoundrels, and if it wasn't obvious already, don't be anything like them if you're trying to win. Mr. Breast called for another challenge vote and alluded to it being quite different from the last one. Everyone got a piece of paper to write down the number of a contestant. Whoever got the most votes would be eliminated. I wonder who everyone's gonna vote for. Now, this would actually be quite an interesting challenge if just a handful of people were eliminated, because it'd specifically target the most annoying players, aka the scoundrels. But Jimmy allowed 10 people to wind up on the chopping block. And even though he said it paid to be honest on the last challenge, after the first 4 or so, it was less about honesty and all about who had the best connections. Cue the teamers. As the largest group in the game, they all worked together to vote for the same numbers and overpower the votes of the lone wolves and scoundrels. After the first 3 were kicked out, the largest team, comprising everyone in row 50, went hard at work to rig the vote and ensure their safety. They even had a scoundrel on their team, but just because he was connected to Team 50, they guaranteed his safety and nobody else had the strength to kick him out. Like I said at the beginning, it's your connections that'll get you through a challenge like this. You're gonna have to use people to your advantage to climb up to the top. After the 7th elimination, Team 50 literally said they were randomly voting, so the last few people not in any group just started taking strays. And by the end of the voting challenge, the 50-year-olds remained completely untouched, but that was about to change. Because on the same day, MrBeast called for another game to be played that was completely out of the older generation's league. Jenga towers were placed in everyone's room, and each player would need to pull blocks out until only 10 people remained, culling 15 in the process. boxes. The best way to win here is just to know how to play giant Jenga, so start low and slowly make your way to the top. You don't have to be a Jenga master to survive though, so just keep 2 blocks at the base and pull as many as you can from the sides as you make your way up. As an example, the first player only pulled 6 blocks before collapsing, which is hilarious. And you can see that the problem here is that most of them are going for the top blocks first and pulling them rather than pushing or tapping. Pulling blocks is an awful idea because giant Jenga weighs a lot more and each piece is influenced by friction. Most of the competition had no idea what they were doing though, so just be better than the average grandfather and you'll be good to go. By the end of this challenge, most of the boomers were eliminated, most likely due to their lesser dexterity and coordination. I mean, one of them also literally lost by bumping into their own table. And with giant Jenga complete, MrBeast quickly moved on to the next game of the day. All the remaining players got 10 marbles and an opponent. They could agree to play any game and wager any amount of marbles. You needed 20 marbles to move on though, so you were encouraged to pick a game that you yourself had the edge in while keeping it fast enough to decide a victor in under 30 minutes. Now there's a problem with that because everyone was pretty far apart, making anything other than throwing minigames or coin flips practically impossible to play. Making up something new on the spot also wouldn't work because your opponent would just assume you're trying to scam them into playing a game they'll lose. So if you're confident in your sleight of hand, you could play a game where you toss marbles into buckets, otherwise you're better off playing a 50-50 game, which sucks, but is still better than being schooled by some guy who, for some reason, is a master marble thrower. By the end of this challenge, only 5 people remained. My main audience demographic had basically been eliminated, and I'm upset at all of you. Mr. Birthday Dad from before had surprisingly stuck through up until now, making me wonder if he was a MrBeast plant or something. I mean, everyone who's already bailed loved their families too much to stay, but you stick around? This guy's certainly the exception to my logic, but not the rule. But regardless, we're back with the next challenge. Jimmy called on the 95 eliminated contestants to vote out 3 more players. And although the people they picked were mostly random, the scoundrel on Team 50 was one of the last guys who still had enemies on the outside, so he got eliminated. Once again, whatever you do, don't be a scoundrel. Then with another 2 nameless players being kicked out, Birthday Dad and this Disneyland woman were the last 2 standing. As a surprise, Jimmy brought in their families and let Birthday Dad celebrate with his daughter. But I'm still convinced he's a paid actor. I mean, just look at this. Man goes in to kiss his child and misses. After the celebration though, we make it to the final stretch of the show. Day 8 comes with the biggest challenge and the craziest mind games. In one briefcase is the check for $500,000. One player chosen by a coin flip gets to look inside their case, and the other player has to use their opponent's facial expressions and admissions alone to decide which one to pick. Birthday Dad's chosen to take the peek, and Disneyland Woman chooses which case to take home. Now, although this once again just looks like another purely random game, Birthday Dad has 2 strategies up his sleeve that I'd also encourage anyone else in this situation to try as well. A cold expression that conveys no emotion is crucial to have here, as seeing the check after this long could easily crack a smile on your face. Then afterwards, the woman asked him what he saw, and even though Birthday Dad could have easily just stayed silent, he actually responded with the biggest brain answers possible.
Joe, do you have $500,000 in your briefcase?
Yes.
Joe, are you lying?
What do you think? I saw the MrBeast logo. Yes. You spent enough time with me. What do you think? Yes.
This is literally a Breaking Bad reference because Walter White also had $500,000 in cash, and to avoid suspicion, just outright said it.
What do you got in there, cinder blocks?
$500,000 in cash.
The easiest way to lie is by telling the truth, because it keeps your story straight and can sound even more unbelievable. The woman's fooled into thinking he's trying to throw her off, and in the final decision of the game, grabs the case in front of her and walks away with nothing! Just goes to show, from the start of the game until now, it paid off, to be honest. From weighing your odds at the very start, to teaming up, all the way to Jenga tricks and mind games, taking advantage of all these tactics will significantly increase your chance at winning a game show like this. So if you ever find yourself in some off-brand MrBeast clone video doing Glassbox Challenge number 2, don't forget to pass some of your winnings over my way. You'll seem to like the variety content, so tap that subscribe button if you're down for more. Quite the contrary, I've been Blaine Simple, and I'll see you all in the next video.